Welcome to our brand new podcast in our $7.99 tier called The Wrap, title created by one Paul Fontaine. Thanks for that, Paul. This podcast is going to focus on WWE in a way that I don't really hear podcasts done about WWE. A little bit more big picture, a little bit more weekly look at things that are going on. We're not going to go segment by segment and talk about the bad stuff that we don't like about Raw. We're not going to, Keila Cash, who's also on this podcast, does her pay-per-view recaps with Andy Marshall. So we're not going to really focus on that, but we're going to take a look at the week that was when it comes to WWE. This is why you're hearing this on the weekend, because we want Smackdown to be finished. So we're going to talk about what happened on Raw, what happened on NXT, what happened on SmackDown, but we're going to focus on what we consider to be the top 5 things, and then just have a discussion. On this podcast specifically, I have Paul Fontaine and Keila Cash with me, which doesn't mean that those are only going to be the folks on this show. We're also going to have folks from the Patreon crew, like Scott Edwards, who does the 5-Star Joshi show. He's showing some a little bit of a flex for him to go from Joshi to WWE. And then we're also going to have a newcomer, Scott Young, on. But there's going to be a cast of folks from this network who are going to be on. We're going to have a sort of a revolving host. I will host this first one, but who knows? I may not even be on the second one. But let me introduce my co-host here, Keila, who is going to be hosting this show sometimes as well. How you doing, Keila?
Doing great. And what a way to kick off this first episode of The Wrap, covering the draft, or should we even call it a draft, as it won't really kick in until the end of the month.
So I'm going to give you credit for this idea, because we'd been talking about doing a WWE focused show, and you said, I think it was you who said the draft is going to be in early October, so maybe that should kick it off. So that's exactly what we did. And then co-host, I think, Paul, is this your 3rd show of the week?
4th, maybe?
4th show of the week for Paul Fontaine.
I think so, yeah. Well, if you count the UFC pay-per-view recap we did.
Yes, 100%.
Actually, that might be 5. Because I had In the Clinch, I had that, I had
Dynamite show.
I did the pay-per-view recap with Keila and Scott Edwards.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. God.
The workhorse.
Woo. Man, this is the Paul Fontaine network here. All Paul, God. All the time. All right, so here's kind of I kind of broke down already what the concept is. So this idea of the top 5. Now I'll ask both of you, but I'll ask Keila first. Did you ever see that movie Top 5 with Chris Rock?
Yes.
Okay. Ever since that movie came out, I always think in 5s now. Whether it is greatest hip-hop groups or greatest hip-hop artists or talking points, I just think in 5s. So that's where the idea came from to cover WWE. Let's talk about the 5 big things that are happening in this company, and we'll focus on those 5 things. We're not going to dig deep into the minutia, though some of that may come up in our conversation, because we're going to focus on 5 topics, and then we're just going to go deep on those 5 topics. Paul, I didn't ask you, Paul, because I didn't think that you saw this movie Top 5 with Chris Rock.
I didn't, but wasn't there was a movie with John Cusack where he was giving top 5s through the whole movie. That one where he worked in a record store. I'm really bad with movie titles.
Yeah.
But constantly, he would just stop and say, okay, top 5 actors, top 5 singles from the 1970s, and he would just, all through the movie, just randomly, he would do that.
Then, they remade that into a Hulu TV show.
Really?
Starring none other than the child of Lenny Kravitz and Lisa Bonet.
Zoe, right?
Zoe Kravitz.
I gotta watch it. She was in the movie too. She played his girlfriend.
Lisa Bonet was in the movie?
No, Zoe Kravitz.
In the John Cusack movie?
Wasn't she?
Zoe Kravitz is probably barely born when that John Cusack movie came out. Yeah.
Well, she looked like Zoe Kravitz. What was the movie called? Anything goes? No.
No. You're thinking of
Because Jack Black was in it.
you might be conflating.
High Fidelity.
Okay. Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, High Fidelity. So yeah.
So
anyways,
unfortunately, and we've already veered so far off the top. High Fidelity only got one season on Hulu too, unfortunately.
the girl's name was Iben Hijela. No. So she looks nothing like Zoe Kravitz. I don't know what I was thinking of.
All right. We're back on track here. So the concept of top 5. That's where it comes from. And like Keila said, the very first number one ace topic of this week, which just happened on Smackdown on Friday, is this idea of the WWE draft. Now, I've talked about this a number of times, how I hate that they don't take a more sports influence to doing the draft. Like, the NBA draft, the NFL draft, those are giant TV ratings driven programs. And why wouldn't you want to increase the possibility of getting more people to take this draft seriously and watch this show? I don't know. And we'll save that for another topic because I feel like I've exhausted that idea. But I do want to ask the both of you, we'll start with Keila first. Based on what you were thinking the draft was going to be and what the draft actually was it pretty close to what you thought, or did you like it more than you thought, or did you dislike it more than you thought?
Oh, it was just a show. Again, it was just people with little cards saying this person goes where. The only thing I liked was the fact that until the Peacock version of the draft aired this morning on Talking Smack, that at least it was more parody that Raw and Smackdown each got 2 picks apiece and it wasn't 3 because Raw was a longer show. I like that. But the presentation is just so bland. I just wish they took a more serious approach like the NFL draft. Say someone's on the clock. You have this many minutes to make your pick. Let USA and Fox pretend they really have a hand in things and make this a bit more exciting. But for what it was okay, but it was just a lame presentation again from WWE. And that's why the draft doesn't pop a rating anymore, because it's not exciting and it's very predictable and lame.
Okay, so if I am, you mentioned this Talking Smack draft, and it was basically the jobber version or the mid-card version of what Friday night was. Now, the frustrating thing to me was that, and then they said this at the top, half of the roster will be drafted on Raw, half of the roster will be drafted on SmackDown. Yet, they did not tell you which half was in which half. You just had to wait and see. So when you saw that Bianca Belair was drafted higher than Becky Lynch, you just had to assume, that means that Becky Lynch is in the second draft. Not to say that Bianca Belair, if this was a real draft, that you may or may not draft her higher. I mean, it's possible. She's got so much talent. But when you saw that the champion wasn't drafted from that brand first, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. I guess that just means that Becky's going to be drafted on Raw, and she's probably going to go number 1. So that was confusing, and that is the part of the sports entertainment that you just have to deal with, because I'm probably a little bit more frustrated than most when it comes to this stuff, just because I have an idea on how it could work. But so going back to this Talking Smack thing, you had people like Akira Tozawa, Doudrop, T-Bar, Mansoor, Drew Gulak. Folks like that were drafted in this Talking Smack version. You know who else got drafted in this Talking Smack version? If I was this person, I would be very mad. John Morrison.
Wow.
John Morrison is not big enough to be drafted on one of the 2 draft nights. He was drafted on Talking Smack.
Wow. And I assume the Miz is probably in this mystery list for Monday.
You would think so. You would hope so. So, what's funny is they did this Talking Smack draft, and so WWE puts out an Instagram post with all of the folks drafted, and I'm assuming this is the order in which they were drafted. And so then they decided to put the important person on this graphic, I guess, who they thought was like the biggest star to be on the graphic. For Raw, who drafted Reggie instead of John Morrison because he's wearing the 24/7 championship draped over his shoulder like he is the ultimate badass. Like I just love this photo because he's got like the fakest belt of all time and he's just like, yep, I'm the stuff here. It's a great photo. I mean, I love the photo, but just the fact that Reggie is the guy who is on the graphic instead of John Morrison. On the other side, they picked the right person. Toni Storm is on the SmackDown graphic. The newly engaged Toni Storm. Congrats to her and Juice Robinson.
Wow.
Okay, so let's go over some of these picks. And, you know, Paul, you can answer the same question I asked you.
Yeah.
Was it what you thought? Were you frustrated, or were you kind of surprised that you liked it more than you?
No, I was really, really frustrated because, like, in the past, they've actually like released the lists ahead of time, so you kind of knew that was what was going on. So I don't know, my brain, and you know, you kind of almost have to shut off your brain when you're watching WWE sometimes. So when she said half the roster is going to be drafted tonight, I took her at her word. So if there's 100 people, they're going to draft the first 50 tonight and the next 50 on Raw. I didn't realize there was two separate lists that they had to pick from. And so immediately, like when Bianca was drafted, I figured, okay, well, maybe they're going to make that into a storyline that she was drafted ahead of Becky. And then they kept going, and then no Becky. Every time they started making picks, I'm like, why aren't they drafting Becky? And then and I even posed the question in the group, and then somebody pointed out, oh, there's two lists. And then so I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense, but they should have explained it. But then later in the show, Roman is complaining that the Usos didn't get drafted. On this night. So then, right, any normal person is going to be, okay, what the hell is going on here? Like, why wasn't Becky drafted? Why wasn't Sasha drafted? And not to mention all the people, Lashley, all the big stars. So I thought, like, there's definitely ways they could have done this. I mean, there's a million ways they could have done this, and this is like almost the worst.
All right, Roman goes first. I didn't understand why SmackDown had the first pick. Did they explain that?
No. Like,
it was just like, oh, SmackDown goes first, and we get Roman Reigns. Like, if I'm Raw, I'm like, was there a coin flip? Did Vince just say that SmackDown got the top pick? Is this David Stern with the frozen envelope in the 1985 NBA draft again? So the New York Knicks get the first pick of the draft so they can get Patrick Ewing? I don't know if that actually happened, though. That's the big conspiracy theory. I was just pissed off because I think the Warriors were the second worst team in the league, and they got the 7th pick because of this stupid lottery. So we had the picks. Roman went 1, Big E went 2, or technically 1 to Raw. They did it in 4s, so you had 4 people chosen, and then they went to like sort of the next segment. So it went Roman for SmackDown, Big E to Raw, Charlotte to SmackDown, Bianca to Raw, Drew McIntyre to SmackDown, RK Bro as a tag team to Raw, then the New Day of the non-Big E version of New Day, and then Edge. So Edge back to Raw. He's kind of a SmackDown guy. He mentioned in his promo, Bianca Belair to Raw, Charlotte Flair to SmackDown. So depending, I'm assuming Becky slides over to Raw. We get possibly some Charlotte and Sasha again. But if Becky and Bianca are on Raw, outside of Charlotte and Sasha, I sure hope it's not like a Carmella feud or something, because like, it's that stuff just drives me nuts. But I'm kind of wondering about the Charlotte to SmackDown situation there, because she needs contenders, and if they're keeping Bianca and Becky together, that's just 2 less people for Charlotte to wrestle. So that's kind of interesting. But Keila, what was your thoughts on, because these are the top people. Like, we can go through some of the rest of the list, but I think I grouped them in 8. They were actually grouped in 4. I put the first 2 rounds together, but basically those were the top, we could say, 8 talents that were drafted. Everybody under that is kind of semi mid-card, but we'll go through some of the surprises with NXT as well. But overall thoughts on the most important talent changing or not changing?
The first 8 I'm cool with, except the New Day being broken up again. We had the very sad goodbye last year We get the reunion. They got the Fuji's gear on. It's beautiful. Now you break them up again and destroy every dream match with the Bloodline and the Hurt Business heading into Survivor Series. So screw WWE for that. Just want to give us the hopes and the dreams of all these trios matches, and they ruin it. So that made me a little upset. As for Charlotte Flair moving to SmackDown with the Raw Championship, I'm like, here we go again. So hopefully we don't have.
She gotta lose it Monday, right?
She better to somebody like Bianca Belair.
They'll just call her a 13-time champion now and make her the SmackDown champion.
Oh God, God. So Becky
her and
Charlotte
Becky just switch belts.
Yes.
They've done it before.
Yeah, they have. They did with the tag belts, right?
Yes, last year the Profits and the New Day, and they were like the happiest transfer of power of all time. Like, here you go. Thank you so much. What a lovely color. just so lame. And I hope that doesn't happen. I really hope Charlotte drops the championship to somebody worthy between now and the pay-per-view, but I doubt it. And we have to go into what Gigi mentioned off air, into what the hell was she wearing last night on SmackDown.
Oh my God.
It felt like she stole Sasha Banks' gear from last year and threw a nice big old chain in front of the outfit. It was just
like
I thought Liv Morgan took some super duper HGH. Like it looked like something she'd wear.
Yeah, she just grew. Like,
yeah.
Oh, Liv. Oh no, that's Charlotte. Well, the thing was, like, I can understand the bodysuit. Like Charlotte is an interesting thing, and Dave Meltzer's mentioned this, and he always gets crap for it. But she is in her mid-30s in a business where the men can age forever. Bill Goldberg's going to be on TV, and this dude is in his 50s. Yet the women, we haven't seen, someone like Mickie James, who is still looks great. Someone like Maria Kanellis, same thing, looks great. Maybe they don't get along with certain people politically, whatever the case is. They seem to get aged out. And I think Charlotte is at this interesting crossroads where she probably feels the pressure that she knows that the guys don't have. And she is doing a tremendous job at staying in shape because she's an absolute specimen. But I wonder if some of it is like just this urge to kind of stay young with her gear too, so she doesn't look older. And I don't think she looks older either. It's just like some of the stuff that she's been doing with her gear recently has just kind of made me wonder. But because she's in such great shape, she's so tall, she's so impressive, she can pull it off. I don't know that she pulled that one off last night, especially because of the shoes that she was wearing. It looked really ridiculous when she threw that big boot at the end of the show and kind of stood tall with her and Becky both raising their belts. I was like, okay, Becky looks like a champion, and Charlotte looks like someone in like a music video or something. I don't really know how to describe how she looked, but yeah, it was just off. And I think the dynamic for Charlotte, like, not to say that I'm sure Charlotte has influence in her character. Ric Flair was a very regal champion, right? He was still the dirtiest player in the game, but he was very regal. And that's what Charlotte was early, or, even recently. She had the robes and she was very regal. And now her character has become very heelish, very snarky, very nasty. And then her gear as well is less of that regalness. Now, you always have to you always have to have a refresher, with your character. You can't always stay the same. I don't know that this is the right one for her, but hopefully for her it works. And maybe she gets some fresh opponents, because I think she needs them, because as impressive as she is and as really good of a wrestler as she is, you can tell with these Alexa matches, which aren't terrible, but even like the Rhea Ripley stuff I thought would be better than it was. She hasn't had the best year. And then when you look at the people on the other side, Bianca, Sasha, Bayley, Becky, they're all having great years. And it seems like Charlotte is maybe a little bit outside of that grouping. Paul, I just said a whole lot about Charlotte that I hope doesn't get me in trouble in any way, because I do love her. She's probably, she's been my favorite, one of my favorite wrestlers in the last 5 years. But what do you think about her character? Did she just get the I guess the wrong rub from the Alexa stuff? Like what is up with Charlotte's character right now?
Well, I think the difficulty there has always been like when she has tried to be a heel, people have been cheering her, and when she's tried to be a face, people are booing her. And I think she's finally figured out a way to actually get booed. So she's just going with it. I think she's playing into the fact that the fans resent her push, and she's playing up, she's changing up her look and everything like you've mentioned. And I think people are kind of looking at her, and, it's like the only way to get like real heat these days is to like legitimately piss people off. And that's what she's doing. I actually was thinking about when you talked about like the cosmetic business and everything, it kind of reminds me of like what Madonna was doing in, when she hit her 40s. And she started like dressing like younger and like really trying to get into shape and stuff like that. And then just somewhere along the way, she just kind of just started being herself. And I just find that more visually appealing and just appealing on a bunch of different levels. But, in terms of this, like it's working, it's getting her heat. She's legitimately the top heel in terms of the women for sure. And probably like maybe top 3 in the company. Behind Roman, and I don't even know who else, because Lashley probably gets cheered more than he gets booed.
Does that heat work, though? Is it good for her character to have that kind of heat? Because she is always going to sort of be in her dad's shadow, because that's just what happens to children of giant stars. But I felt like because she was so athletic and she was such a good wrestler that she kind of established herself. And I don't know, I just think recently she's become a little bit more of a frustrating character. And I don't know that that's necessarily the way that they're trying to go. She does not seem to be as organic as she once was, but maybe this is who she is. Maybe she's more comfortable being like this. I don't know. There's just something that's off with her, and that comes from somebody who has been such a giant Charlotte fan for years. But you can just give me your quick thoughts on those first 8 picks, as I mentioned. Any surprises or any things that you thought were maybe possibly wrong?
Well, the only thing I wanted to say was I had 2 like common sense questions, and I may have this as we go through here. Number 1, why did they call it round 1 when they made like 2 or 4 picks on each side? Like that made no sense to me at all. And then the second one was, oh geez, I already forgot what my second one was. That was the big one. In terms of the picks, yeah, I mean, I had no issue. I actually called Charlotte moving over. I just think it's time for some new opponents for her. And really, like, there isn't a lot on Raw. Like, I don't know what they're doing with Asuka. I don't know if she was in this supplemental draft or if she's going to be drafted on Monday. But, like, she's been on TV, like, once since WrestleMania, I think. Like, losing to Doudrop, if, like, that's the only one I can remember. Hopefully, like, you got Liv Morgan, you got Carmella. You're going to have 2 of Becky, Sasha, Bayley at some point, going against her. Bianca's on Raw, but so she'll have some good opponents. And I think like when you talked about the character and you said, does it work? I think with the right babyface, it could work really, really well.
But she dominates everything,
right?
Coach.
But you would have like this babyface that people would get behind. So if they actually win, it works, because then they really hate Charlotte and they want to see the belt off her. So if you got like a hot babyface, like a Liv Morgan would be perfect. If the fans were getting behind her and then she actually beat Charlotte, like I think that would be a great moment that the fans would just love, and it would be like, yeah, the queen is dead.
I don't think Charlotte would allow it to happen though. Like,
well, and
I
if
think
that's
she
the case,
sees
then it doesn't work. Like it only works if she's willing to put somebody over.
Now, this is a problem, I think, in WWE, which is because they don't write baby faces terrifically well, the way that the babyface actually sees getting over is to get over as a heel first.
Yeah.
And so it's like the Roman paradigm here where, Becky Lynch comes back, and Becky Lynch probably gets 6 months of the fans accepting her, the fans being so happy that she's back, and she could have like an easy 6-month run as a babyface. But the way that she sees it is like, Yeah, they may screw me up though, so I'm gonna go heel. I'm gonna be in a little bit more of a control side of it, and I want to dictate my own fate. I want to be a heel. Roman's a heel. He's the top star. I want to be that female version. I don't know that that's exactly her mindset. It's looked like that was kind of the idea, but now you have Charlotte doing the same thing. So it works for Roman, but imagine if I don't know. John Cena is a bad example because he's never turning heel. But I'm trying to think of another babyface who maybe struggled getting over as a babyface. You can't have two Romans. You can't have two Beckys. You can't have so much heat as the way you tell stories. Because that is why nobody gets behind a babyface. Liv Morgan comes into Smackdown, and like you said, she becomes someone the fans can get behind. She's eating a boot, she's eating the figure eight, and she's going home because look at what happened in the Carmella match.
Oh my god,
that was just on that show. Okay, we'll get away from this draft. We'll have more about it next week because they're gonna do more picks. The other big picks will be on Monday. But I guess the last thing that I would say, and I want to get both of your thoughts on the NXT stuff, that they were just randomly inserted. So we got Hit Row that came up. They're coming to the SmackDown side. Sonya called her Fab B instead of B Fab.
And Top Dollar.
So that wasn't great for their debut. Austin Theory to the Raw side, which
might be the highlight by the time we're said and done.
Which was interesting because I love Austin Theory. He's been great with Johnny Gargano. He's young. He could be somebody, that the younger fans could kind of get behind. I don't know, if this weird feeling that he's going to come in and he's going to be a heel and he's going to do dumb, goofy stuff with Matt Riddle. Actually, against Matt Riddle. But, if they put him together with Matt Riddle and Randy Orton, that would be kind of cool. I would actually be into that. But I just feel like he's going to come in as a heel because they go, no, he can't be a babyface. Why would he be a babyface? But to me, I'm like, put this guy as a young babyface. Let's have him win some matches and maybe people will get behind him. But what did you all think, Keela? What did you think of those two NXT selections?
I was surprised by Hit Row a bit, but I'm happy for them. I'm only concerned about how they will be scripted on the main roster because I did not like the presentation at all on Tuesday. Like, I don't want that Hit Row. I want the Hit Row before 2.0. I want the Hit Row that sounded organic, that sounded real, that sounded raw and authentic. Not this, we're promoting tonight's show version of Hit Row, and we're going to say this stuff that we don't believe. So I don't want that version of them, but I mentioned this on Twitter last night. I cannot wait until their music hits on SmackDown and Pat McAfee dances for 5 minutes. Absolutely nuts for Hit Row. That is going to be a treat. And because of that, I'm afraid Shinsuke Nakamura will be moved to Monday Night Raw because Pat can only dance once per show. So I'm very sad about that. But for that alone, it's worth the draft pick. As for Austin Theory, he definitely needed to go back to NXT last year to get a character because he was very WWE 2K20 creator wrestler, and it wasn't working for me whatsoever. But being with The Way, it allowed his personality to shine, and he got so much better as a worker. So being back on Monday Night Raw is a good step for him. Unfortunately, Paul Heyman's not there to kind of finesse the situation for him. So he's going to have to work hard to get over. And for some reason, we know that Austin Theory, the character from NXT, wasn't so bright. Can you imagine Riddle being his protege, being his understudy as they try not to piss off Randy Orton to the depths of hell? But for that alone, I'm intrigued as to how he will be presented. He has the tools to be a babyface, but knowing WWE, he will be a heel chasing after the 24/7 championship.
Oh, God. You just hurt my feelings with that one.
I'm sorry. You know what's going to happen. Reggie's going to fly through the air and Austin can't catch him.
Yeah. All right, Paul. quick thoughts on it. We'll do a segment on NXT in a second here. So just quick thoughts on what they did there.
I mean, the Hit Row being drafted is kind of like what we have been dreading since they first debuted, because they were so hot, and it like Keila said, it's so organic, and then you just know that they're going to try to WWE-ize it, and it's going to ruin it. And hopefully that doesn't happen, but you know, I don't want to get my hopes up for something that I'm pretty sure is, you know, like I know what's going to happen. So, and as for Austin Theory, like if there's two scenarios of him going on this massive babyface run where he just runs through all the competition and, you know, and becomes a big star, or he's running after the 24/7 title, if those are the two scenarios, there's one of them that I can see a lot more than the other one in this company. I think he needs to be with a group of some sort like he was before, and that's how he's going to get over, you know, doing the reactions and then, you know, getting the matches, getting in long matches with experienced workers and getting better in the ring, and then letting his personality shine. And him by himself is doomed to fail. Like, I just don't see any possible way it'll be successful.
Okay, so let's move away from the draft. Our topic number 2 is the Crown Jewel show that they're kind of promoting while at the same time as doing other stuff. They always do this. It's not like a true build for like SummerSlam or Survivor Series where it's like all hands on deck on the build. It's like, we're going to do our shows and we're going to promote this show that's going to happen on Thursday afternoon that you all are you should watch, but we know a lot of you won't watch. And we're just going to put all these giant matches on it. So we had Brock Lesnar coming out in the opening segment of Smackdown. I don't really know why he was there. Like, there was no reason for him to be there outside of just doing a nice little pull apart and a little brawl with Roman and beating up the Usos, who, you know, they took some F5s and they were just kind of chilling in the back. I don't know. I would have maybe put them with ice packs on their neck or something in later in the show. So Brock was there, and they also are building towards Sasha versus Becky versus Bianca for 2 of those matches. So we will get the women's match at Crown Jewel. And then I think we're going to get Seth and Edge. And there was this show-long storyline, which was really goofy, of Edge. Seth just breaking into Edge's home, and Edge doing a really good job trying to act seriously with this thing that was not a very serious story. Calling Beth and telling her not to go home and go to your brother's, and I don't care if you have groceries, just go to your brother's. And Seth, you know, just kind of hanging out in the house like in a creepy way. I don't know. I kind of understand the whole. They've done this storyline a ton of times. I don't know if this was the right time to do this. I guess maybe they have to get another match out. So there's some. They're trying to think of like what creative can we do. Anyways, Crown Jewel is the next big show because it is, like I said, is on Thursday. I don't know how many people are going to watch it, but man, those are 3 giant matches, including one of the matches that probably should be main eventing the Royal Rumble or even WrestleMania with Brock as a babyface. I've been on this Brock as a babyface thing pretty much for a year now, and I'm so happy they're doing it. He even has, you know, he's never been the best promo, but he has like this charm as this like guy who doesn't say much and is all faces and facials and snarls and body, and like there's a charm to him as a babyface that I'm happy that is coming through, that I always thought was going to be there if they did turn him. So I don't know, Keila, Crown Jewel, is this? Are you excited for these matches, or because they generally don't mean anything, is like is there not a lot of shine for you?
It's never been any shine for me for Crown Jewel, and they're really trying to goad me into watching this show. I refuse to watch the show.
Good for you.
Yes, I refuse. We know what the deal is. It's a big flashy card. Shit finishes will occur that will make no one happy, that will set up matches for Survivor Series and ultimately the Royal Rumble next year. So thankfully we have the wrap now, and we can briefly talk about the show 2 days later. So you don't have to watch the entire pay-per-view. So we at Patreon gives you a gift to not watch this show. But, you know, they're trying to make this as big as possible because you don't have the 2 October pay-per-views this year like you had previously before Crown Jewel. So I get it. I just don't want to see Bianca, Becky, and Sasha covered up for their women's championship match.
I know. What is the story with that? Are they going to have to basically be wearing T-shirts? Like, what's the deal? Do we know?
I have no idea until it happens. And I really believe it's going to be T-shirts and baggy pants, unfortunately. And that sucks. That's not progress to me. Progress is you going out there as yourself and just giving the people what they want to see 100%. And to have a watered down version of that for that championship, I'm just not feeling it whatsoever. So I'm just like, nice try to get me to watch, but I know what the deal is going to be at the end of the day.
I imagine Charlotte's outfit from SmackDown.
Bam.
Yeah. Paul, quick thoughts on Crown Jewel. We'll have weeks, a couple more weeks to kind of dig deeper into this card. But just as a sort of this bright flashing sign of like, watch me, pay attention to me. Is it working for you?
Well, I'm probably more inclined to watch this one than I would be otherwise, just with that huge Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match, and the 3-way is not much below that. Seth Rollins Edge I've seen a few times already. It's always good. But you were talking about the build, so I wonder about this build for Seth Rollins and Edge, and whether or not like we're just going to pick up next week, and Seth Rollins is still going to be in Edge's house, and because we got no update. It's halfway through the show. He was
and I thought we were going to get an update, right?
Nothing.
Like we should have.
No, I mean Edge on the phone with Beth, just saying, stay at your brother's. I'm on my way home, and and he didn't call the cops or anything. Like I thought he acted really well. It's one of the actually the bright sides, I would say. He acted like a normal person would act. He didn't just like pretend like he was trying to get home. Like he called, and he says like, get to your parents. And I assume the reason the cops weren't there is because they're like in the middle of nowhere, like Seth said. So it's probably not something cops could get to very quickly.
Yeah.
And then Brock was amazing on the show. Like he interrupted an interview. I think it was with I can't remember. It was with a woman that I can't remember who, but
it was
Kayla Braxton.
No, it was Jeff Hardy.
Oh, it was Jeff Hardy. You're right. Yeah. You're right. Oh, yeah, because they kind of had that stare down. Like, we've got a history here.
Jeff was like, oops.
Gotta go.
Yeah. Yeah. But then Brock was just like, are we live? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, if you would excuse me for a moment, I have something to say. And it's just all really nice. And then he's like, thanks to Paul Heyman. Let me repeat that. Thanks to Paul Heyman. And then he's like, I can do whatever I want. And it was just so great.
Okay. I know they would never do something like this. But if Kayla would have said, it's live, pal, I would have died. Oh my God, I would have died. And it would have been my favorite
We're live, pal. We're
of
live,
WWE ever.
Yeah.
It would have been
that was awesome. So, I mean, I do think they're doing a very good job promoting this so far because, I mean, they have 50 million reasons to do so. So when they're motivated, they can do well. I was just looking back at the last one. Do you realize we had Tyson Fury and Cain Velasquez on the last Crown Jewel? Like, I mean, they go all out for these shows.
Yeah, no. And they do. And it makes sense because they get so much money. And if you're going to, if they want Brock, then you just put Brock on that show. I don't know what it does for, sort of the future of their storylines. And we'll get to that in a second. Kind of just about the booking overall. But, it'll be on in the background at my house. I will not pay attention to all the stuff about how great it is over there and all that stuff. But, whenever Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar get together, I want to check it out. I know that they've had some sort of bad matches between the two of them. But I always go back to WrestleMania 31, which is sort of an underrated big man match because those guys were beating the hell out of each other. I thought Roman was like concussed and bloody nose and like they were really, really putting it to each other. So I don't think it'll get there, but there's always an opportunity because they're so talented. If they can just get that chemistry together, this may possibly be the time where they have that match that people do remember. Okay, let's go to topic number 3, which is NXT. And I just have one basic question, and I'll open it up to Keila first, which is, what is NXT supposed to be today? We know it is they're going back to the roots of it's the farm system of the main roster, and we're getting all these people ready for the main roster. My question is more along the lines of as a television product, because there's a lot of people who we have no idea who they are. They're introducing a lot of characters. When it comes to the TV side of this thing, there's no way, at least as far as I'm concerned, fans are able to care as much about these new folks than they did about the past version of NXT. So what do you think they are trying to build to for this TV show? And is it working, which I guess is probably an easy question for you to answer, but just that's kind of where I want you to go with this conversation.
Well, I understand what they're trying to do in that they have a PC full of trainees who've been there for a minute now, and you're trying to see what they got. And to a point, I agree. But at the same time, everybody is not ready for television. This is a national show that goes on the air every single Tuesday live, not taped. And this is supposed to be the finishing school before the main roster. And this is not the show where you learn how to be a professional wrestler. That's why you have the PC 5 days a week to learn how to work. And then when you're good enough, you can make TV to have good matches. It does not work the other way around. You don't get to learn on the job. And I understand what they're trying to do, but the execution is so bad right now. And I do see glimmers of hope. I love Braun Breaker. I love the revamped Diamond Mine. I see a lot of pieces that have potential, but there are people on this show that are not ready for national television. And I go back to the fact that with the old NXT, it was a very good show, but it was flatlining a bit, and you needed this switch, but it needs to be a best of both worlds situation where you're trying to get people ready, but not completely backburning the people that really put this show on the map about 5 or 6 years ago. And by doing so, with all the fresh faces, it's going to be a very difficult show to watch when you see people not ready. It's a difficult show to watch. And I had this conversation with someone saying, if you want to be a developmental show, put it on Peacock, not on USA Network. They did not pay money for people to be stars of tomorrow learning every single week on the job. This isn't the show for that.
Sean Ross Sapp reported that USA was all in on the idea. Now, I would kind of think about what would happen if they were all out on the idea. Would WWE care? Would they have to do? Would they have to concede in some other way? But to follow up, Keila, which is if this show is what you say it is, the idea of throwing 20 new characters at us and hoping one sticks, Braun Breaker, I think has worked. You mentioned the revamped Diamond Mine. I'm intrigued for sure. But when you throw out the Grayson Waller, who Paul chastised me for not remembering who he was a couple different times, when you throw out the Von Wagner, when you throw out the Gacy, when you throw out the young guy, the rugby player, who I can't even remember his name. The reason why I can't remember
Zion.
The reason why I can't remember his name is because they threw out so many brand new characters at us, and we're sort of expected to. I think the idea is like we go, oh, I can't wait to see more. Oh, I can't wait to see more. Oh, I can't wait to see more. I agreed with two of those. With yes, Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker's got to be wrestling on every show. He just has to be, because there's nobody else who is connecting. And if they didn't see that after show 1 and then show 2, I don't know what to tell them. He's literally the only guy who is connecting right now from that crew. They can continue to bring these new people in. They can continue to put some shine on them. There was the who was the wrestler who did the 30-second squash match 2 weeks ago. So there's just so many of these folks, and I just don't understand the car crash version of superstars of wrestling, because we can't remember any of these people's names. And so that's my follow-up to you is this style of TV that they're doing. do you think it eventually connects? And if not, like what is the compromise here? What is the other option for them to try and get over all of these new folks, seemingly at once, I guess?
Well, I think this week was a little bit better because for the first time I was not overly bombarded with people I've never seen before that weren't ready for television. But I think the solution is this. I know that Triple H has lost a lot of power running NXT. I get that. But he needs to come back because he had the sensibility to know, okay, these people that I love very much are not ready to be on my show. But I'm going to give Vince and Kevin Dunn a compromise. Hey, guys, guess what? I see your list. I'm going to make some adjustments, and I'm going to place them accordingly to accentuate their strengths and not their weaknesses. I'm going to work within your parameters, but we have to tighten this show up. It has to have a structure. You can't throw people out there that are not connecting with the people. I think about Joe Gacy. This character is dead in the water. He looks like Kevin Owens light, and that is not a good thing. And he has talent. He had a great match. Well, I wouldn't say great, but a decent match against Cameron Grimes last week. And you see his potential, but this character sucks. And I think we're going back to really outdated characters that don't work in the year 2021. A mob boss and Tony Nipples? No. I mean, that's okay if you're trying to give him a character, and I really hope he can work on Tuesday. That's going to be a test because the character can only do so much for you. But these one-dimensional characters, Grayson Waller, I like to be a thrill seeker. I like to jump off high shit. And what can you do as a professional wrestler? And granted, he had a decent match against Roderick Strong for the Cruiserweight Championship. I saw potential. He is ready for television, but with more refinement, he can be something. And the one guy that sticks out to me in the wrong way, and no offense to him, he's big, he's tall, is Von Wagner. This dude, for his size, and he has a lot to offer in that department, he is scared to death on television. And I can't have that when Kyle O'Reilly should be primed for a title shot and he's got to carry this dude around. It's not a good look. I just think at the end of the day, they need to kind of reformat this show. If you want to get the newer faces over, fine, but make sure it's structured in a way that benefits them and you're not throwing them on television before it's ready and just say good luck, because that's the core issue. Eventually, some people will figure it out, but by then you might have given up on them because you pushed them on television far, far too soon.
All right, Paul, I know you did not dislike this last show, episode 3 of NXT 2.0. as much as I did. I thought it was maybe the worst NXT show I've seen since the USA, since they went to USA. And that, I'm sure there could be others. I may have forgotten stuff, but just from the idea of I am investing my 2 hours on this television show, give me something. I was never more disappointed than I've been with this show. You have a little bit of a flip side argument to that. You have a little bit more of like a glass half full with NXT right now, because I think you're thinking about it in a little bit of a different way than I do. So I wanted to give you the floor, and you can give your thoughts on this.
Okay, so actually, I'm not even going to disagree that it might have been the worst episode of NXT since they moved to USA. You had called it one of the worst wrestling TV shows of the year, and that's the one I disagreed with because I watch Raw every week, and it's often very bad. And I didn't find this as bad as a lot of the episodes of Raw I've watched. But yeah, if you're comparing it to other NXTs, but let's get off of that. When you say what is NXT, I think what it is it's minor league WWE, and so was the original NXT, except this we're actually going into the lower minors. So if you want to do a real sports comparison, I call this AA baseball, where you're focusing on the top prospects that you think have the best future. And when I look at the guys they're pushing, and I've heard you guys both mention a bunch of different names, and yes, a lot of them aren't ready right now, but my long-term prospects for those people are a lot better in this company than they would be for, a Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, even an Adam Cole. Like, And that's not to say that these guys are better than those guys. Of course they're not. But in this company, those are the guys that are going to get pushed. So this show is about getting those guys ready for being on the main roster. And the appeal of watching is you're seeing the stars before they were stars. So you're seeing Braun Breaker at the beginning of his career. You're seeing, Zion Quinn. You're seeing, Grayson Waller, and a bunch of other people. Even Von Wagner, like he's not even close to ready. But when he is, they're going to push him hard, and he might fail, he might succeed, but he's going to get pushed. And so that's, for their purposes, this show is developing superstars for the main roster. And in terms of their network partner, Dave Meltzer's talked about this. The TV execs don't care about good wrestling. They care about people that look good on TV. And these people look good on TV, just physically, they're, the women, the men, they look good. They're, people you want to be, or they're people you want to be with. And that's, and that's what they're pushing, as opposed to, like Old Man Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, who's this little short, goofy dude. And, Kyle O'Reilly, who's a dork. And, Roderick Strong's a kind of a cool guy, but he's older. Adam Cole, I have no idea. Don't even get me started
what
there.
A
but
miss that screwed up.
But I mean, these are all like BFAB. Like these are people that look like TV stars, and so they're going to teach them to be wrestlers. And it's not going to be as good of a TV show going forward on its own, but it's probably got a better chance of accomplishing the purpose. Now, whether or not Peacock or NBC Universal is happy with that, it's going to depend on the ratings. And it didn't do that good this week, but the first 2 weeks were good. We'll see. Like I wouldn't throw anything at this week or the last 2 weeks, but if this becomes a trend where it goes down, well then they're probably not going to be too happy with it, and maybe they cancel it and they do move it to Peacock. But as long as NBC is willing to give them $25 million a year, they're not moving it to Peacock.
Okay. You said the ratings, and you are the one who focuses on this stuff. And you're also the one who said if NXT gets their own night, they're actually going to go down, and that's exactly what happened. You predicted that one. So let's talk about the future of, because you just said what the execs want is they don't really care about the wrestling as long as the ratings are okay. What do you think is okay when it comes to the 18 to 49 demographic? Because basically that number for them from the first show dropped about 30 some odd
30%. Yeah. I think anything between, okay is probably between like a 0.12 and a 0.15. Anything below 0.12 is where they're probably going to start getting heat, and anything above 0.15 they're probably happy with. I think basically they want to be in the top 20, and this week they were 32nd. So, this week probably isn't good. And if they stay at this level, NBC's not going to be too happy. But, it could be that this was an aberration. Like, I was looking at the competition, and news looked like it was a little up. And there's a couple of shows that look like they might have siphoned off some female viewers. I don't watch them, so I don't remember what they were, but I just remember they were at the top of the charts. Your reality shows. So, if as long as they don't have that kind of
like Married at First Sight and stuff like that?
Yeah, stuff like that, but then you've also got NBA and NHL coming soon, and that's going to take viewers away. We've seen that before. And Tuesday night, I think, is a big NBA night. So, but the NBA doesn't affect NXT's ratings as much as it does for AEW. So, we'll see. But I think though, like, as long as they stay over like 600,000, maybe even 550 in terms of overall viewers, and like 0.12 to 0.15, they should be okay.
Okay, so on August 4th, they did a 0.10 and 520,000. I can't remember.
That was on Sci-Fi.
Okay, that was on Sci-Fi. Got it.
Yeah.
So a number like that.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Now you're getting USA execs going like, what's going on, guys? So, if that is the case, and if those are the numbers that you think that they'll be happy with, I think this show is probably going to be okay. But my main worry is that, and here's sort of the point which I've established in our Facebook group, I'm sure so many times, which is because it is a show, like you said, AA baseball, which, by the way, I'm a diehard San Francisco Giants fan. I would never watch the AA team play.
No, me neither.
Every week.
Yeah,
Okay.
I watch every inning of Blue Jays games, and I'm not watching, Trenton or whatever their AA team is.
So, let's say in 3 weeks, Braun Breaker is the single hottest character in professional wrestling. Probably not going to be the case, but let's just say that happens. Vince McMahon goes, oh, well, this is what NXT is for. Braun, you're coming up, my guy. You're coming up. You're going to be on Raw, and you're facing Big E for the championship. Those people who watch NXT, the next week, now their favorite character is gone. And maybe it is Von Wagner, like Keila said. Maybe he then steps up and maybe we're like, okay, we're good with Von. He's not as hot as Braun, but good. And let's say Von Wagner heats up. And Vince is like, all right, you're going to SmackDown. You're feuding with Roman. And if you're the NXT viewer, you're like, okay, so my two favorite guys are gone. Maybe it's...
Dante Chen.
Well, I'm trying to think of someone on the women's side who could possibly get hot, like maybe Raquel. Raquel. We've seen Raquel, and I think maybe she has.
I think she's getting drafted.
Kind of peaked, and maybe she will get drafted. But just whoever else that character is, who the fan base goes, you know what? Those guys are gone. That's how this works. But I am invested in this person. My worry is the 3 or 4 people who we really like. If this is true developmental, then they're going to be gone, and we're going to have to keep doing this dance every time someone leaves. Like, oh, now it's Joe Gacy, and then by then maybe Joe Gacy's just not working, and so you're going to go through these doldrums. So my worry is more so that they're not going to create as many characters to replace the ones who do eventually get over, and we could see some diminishing returns from this style of TV show. That was a very long-winded conversation that we had about NXT, and we're going to move on. But that is mostly my worry, and that's someone who, I'm a giant NXT fan. John and I on Wednesday nights, we've been covering NXT and AEW very equally for the last 2 years. I know Brian and Dave don't even really cover NXT segment by segment anymore, so they've actually taken a bite out of it and are even focusing even more on Dynamite these days, which I didn't think could be possible but that's kind of just what they like. So let's go to number 4 here, topic number 4. And these last two, we don't have to dig too deep into it, but as a fan, I don't mind Raw hot-shotting a lot of what they've been doing, because it has actually made the show for me to be a little bit more must-see. Having Big E come over and cash in his Money in the Bank and win, having Big E versus Bobby Lashley in that cage match last week, which they did every WWE trope in cages that they could possibly do, and then they're like, okay, we just had to get that out of our system. We couldn't stop ourselves from doing those, slam the cage door on the head or having people jump the cage. We just need to get rid of, we need to get out of our system, and now we're going to have an actual cage match. I just thought that was so weird of them to do. But the hot-shotting makes that show more enjoyable, but I wonder what happens when they cannot find things to hotshot anymore. And it's almost like one of those things where the old Dana White saying about, stepping over dollars to pick up dimes or whatever it was. And while they're trying to keep up with this idea that you got Monday Night Football, you got AEW kind of sneaking up on us, we have to hotshot all this stuff. At some point, again, diminishing returns in the hotshotting, and they may pay for it. That's my worry for them, is that while my enjoyment of these shows, especially specifically Raw, is much more than it was, maybe a month ago, there's going to be a point where it doesn't work anymore. Paul, we'll start with you, because I know you kind of pay attention to this stuff, very closely when it comes to ratings. But do you have that same worry as me, that while I may be enjoying these shows more, it may not be great for the future for them to continue to do this?
Well, I I don't even know really what to say, because I mean, they're doing this, but it's not even working. Or I mean, maybe it is working, and
they could be tanking,
yeah,
right?
It would be even worse. I think what we're going to see through this football season, because the NFL is so hot, that we're going to have a lot of different gimmicks. And so we had the 2 world title matches this week. We've got the draft next week. We're going to have a season premiere, I think. Maybe that's the following week. And then, we have the King of the Ring tournament, which I'm sure is going to go on for a little while. And then we'll probably get some Vince McMahon return, or Triple H or something. Like, they're just going to keep going to their old playbook.
Uncle Milty is going to come back on TV.
Oh God, I hope not.
Oh my God.
Like Stephanie, like, I don't know. I think
she's the one. I've said this before.
Yeah.
That if because this is what happens when they sort of lose a little bit, right? Where they can sense people are catching up, is they want to make friends. They want to get favorable coverage. Stephanie is that person right now.
Yeah.
It's not Vince, and it's not going to be Vince in the future, right? From what it looks like, Shane maybe, I don't know, on the way out again. Wow. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, they
what
brought him back for a couple weeks there, like a little while ago, and then he was gone again.
So I think the future, and look, what Keela said about Triple H being kind of on the outs. We know that he's not going to be that person, because Vince kind of put the blame on him for NXT losing to AEW.
Maybe they bring him into Job.
Oh my God!
Oh my God! Can you imagine? Oh Lord!
Putting over Braun Breaker.
So Steph is the one. I think she becomes a super, super duper valuable media person, and I know it's happening. Like, I know my buddy Andrew Zarian, who I do the We're Live Pal show with. He posted a photo of at the Madison Square Garden Smackdown that they did. It's him and Steph, and he's like, "Oh, she's such a nice person." I'm like, "Yeah, of course she is. I'm sure she's a nice person in real life, but they're trying to make friends again. Just like, be aware of that." And he's like, "Yeah, totally." But he really liked her. He said she's so charming, so engaging, so nice. So she's the right person for that job. And I say that, with not to kiss anybody's butt. I don't want to be invited to Madison Square Garden Raw. I say it because when old man Uncle Milty, when he's not there, I would rather have Steph become the face of this company than Brucey Pritchard, than the always horse Johnny Ace, than Kevin Dunn. Like, can you imagine if they take more of a public face? I don't think they will, but if those are our other
Nicky
possibilities, well, Nicky Khan, if he knew more about wrestling, I think he'd do it. He just doesn't know enough, right?
Yeah.
And so it's got to be Steph, and I think she's going to be such a valuable component to their company as we move forward. Now, we veered off topic again, but Keela, what do you think about all this hot shotting? And like Paul says, it's not actually bumping things, but we may be stopping from drowning, actually.
Thankfully, because I go back to the first week of the NFL season, and they thought to themselves, "Oh, we just have the NFL to worry about. We can coast for 20 weeks." And then when Dynamite beat them at 18-49, oh shit, can't coast no more. So I think it gave them the motivation to try. And ever since they went back on the road, Raw was the only show that refused to try something different and fresh, to make these shows worth watching, to make sure if you're buying a ticket, it's worth buying. So for the last couple of weeks, it has been much, much better. It's been hot-shotted to death, but it made these shows much more watchable, and it gave the creative side a motivation and a reason to care about putting on the best possible show. Now, eventually, you have to slow roll. You cannot have a WWE championship match every week anchoring your show. But the good news is, even though this draft is not going to be constituted until October 22nd, you do have tournaments that will fill the time a bit better for Raw and SmackDown. But for Raw especially, they need a hook. And I really want them to go back to 2019 when they realized AEW was coming and they cared for a bit. Then the pandemic happened, and then stuff happens, unfortunately, and they kind of slid back a bit, and it got really bad for most of this year as well. But now that you got fans back, you have people hyped wanting to see wrestling, but it's got to be good wrestling. You have to put on your best show. And they've done that. But now they got to chill post-draft, post-tournaments to really try to make this show about establishing fresh stars that can get over and make sure that Big E has a really strong run as WWE champion. He's the guy right now that can really be your centerpiece. And I hope they understand that, because if they don't, then you're going to be chasing behind AEW again. And I'm glad they woke up, because if they didn't, my God, these numbers would be hitting record lows right now.
Yeah. All right. Last topic here, our fifth one to end this show. Actually, we have one small segment that Paul thought of before we get out of here. So the last thing is, I just kind of wanted to bring this up as a small thing. I have been anti this Alexa Bliss character from the beginning. She had nasal surgery at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. Charlotte ripped up Lily. Is Lily dead? Is this character dead? I don't imagine so. Alexa has been a little, I guess I would say, defensive about it ever since, at least online, ever since Dave Meltzer reported that people left during the Alexa and Charlotte segment from a couple weeks ago. I think she's been, like, I don't like the creative at all. I think she's been fantastic, though. She's been a great soldier. She's probably, I don't know if she's more popular than she's been, but there's definitely been more of a focus because of these segments on her, allowing her to do, kind of like these soliloquies by herself with the doll, and just, she's been on TV a lot more because of this stuff. What do you guys think about what she could possibly do when she comes back, and then B, if they've kind of cornered themselves because of the sales of these toys and everything, to where Alexa kind of has to continue doing this? Like, what are your thoughts on sort of the future of Alexa Bliss as a WWE superstar? And, does something like this kind of destroy her, kind of like it destroyed Wyndham Rotunda with The Fiend? Like, can she come back from this if the idea is that we need to kind of get away from this? And we'll start with Keela.
There's hope for Alexa Bliss. I think her as a character, when she's talking on the mic, is incredibly over, and the people want to love her. The one flaw is the voodoo shit that was horrible in the Thunderdome, and they tried it in front of live audiences. And after a week, they said, okay, we give up. Good,
I will commend them for that.
They took notes and said, no more hypnotizing, no more creepy shit, no more winking dolls. So they realized the presentation it has to be a bit different with Alexa Bliss on television. That's good. I'm just done with the doll. I hated the doll since day one. It's an ugly doll. First of all, you are worth $4 billion. So you're telling me you can't call the craftsmen that make the Annabelle dolls and give Alexa something to actually sell and make money off of. But no, let's give her a bootleg Raggedy Ann. So it sells. It amazingly sells at the Superstore at SummerSlam, and I'm shocked by this. Shame on all of you that gave that doll money. Shame, shame, shame. But in all seriousness, I really want Alexa Bliss to get away from the character. Maybe it can be a hybrid of the then version of Alexa Bliss and who she is now, and just drop the doll and the voodoo aspects of it. But I will say that when this first started last year, before it all went downhill, I thought that Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss were great together. They had great chemistry, and they dropped it, and that made me very, very sad. So for that, I think Alexa can carry this on her own, but it has to be free of the doll and all voodoo elements. No foaming at the mouth, no Castrol GTX bleeding from her head, just her being herself, being over because the people like her as Alexa Bliss, the feisty badass, the one that talks shit and can back it up.
My stepdaughter is 6. She has no idea about what pro wrestling is. I'm never going to show her what it is. She's a girly girl. She loves dolls. She loves everything that, a girly girl would enjoy. And this is not because we push her in any direction. That is just who she is. I gave her the Riho action figure because I had one. I had bought it a long time ago, and I opened it and I was like, well, what do you think about Riho? She's like, oh, she's kind of pretty, but it was still a sort of masculine figure, right? Riho has a little bit of muscles, and the way it's an action figure, it's not really a doll. If I gave her a Lily doll, she would look at the doll and say, thanks, but no thanks, and leave the room.
Wow.
And so I'm kind of wondering what the people who buy these dolls, are they dads who have daughters who they're trying to get into wrestling? Because I can't imagine a little girl who doesn't have anything to do with wrestling looks at the Lily doll and goes, I want one. It has to be the parents buying these dolls, right? Like I don't imagine.
Yeah.
But Paul, you have a daughter. Would she want a Lily doll?
No. Okay. And she does like wrestling figures and wrestling dolls. She has a couple of Becky dolls that she really loves. She has another doll that, before she got the Becky dolls, we called her Becky doll, and because it had long red hair and so she could play with it. And she does like the action figures, male or female, but she does not like when the Charlotte Becky or Charlotte Alexa match happened on Extreme Rules, like she gave the nasty face to both of them. Like she just does not like either one. And she does have her favorites, and those, she's not one of them. But I think you're right though. I think that's what I think she'd play with the doll, but it's not like she'd particularly want it, and it would probably be last on the list of her dolls that she'd play with. Right. And I would never buy it for her anyways. So there's that. All right.
What's the future of Alexa here, you think?
Well, what I'm hoping, and the funny thing is, like, I saw people comparing her to Harley Quinn, like with the look. And I'll be honest, like, I'd never seen any movie that had Harley Quinn in it, so I couldn't make that comparison. I guess for whatever reason, I didn't see the one Batman movie she was in, but then I saw Suicide Squad, and oh my God, I'm watching Suicide Squad, and I'm like, it felt like I was watching Alexa Bliss, except I'm watching like a cool version, and this is what they need to do with Alexa Bliss. Like, she needs to be crazy, but not like voodoo or magic or, like occult or whatever you want to call it. She just needs to be unpredictable and crazy and powerful. And that is what people are going to get behind. And I think she can pull that off, because I think that's what she was kind of trying to do. But then creative was going in a different direction. So she was playing the role really well, but I just don't think it works on any level in professional wrestling. Whereas I think that kind of Harley Quinn-esque character would work. And I think she could do it. So hopefully, I mean, clearly if they're writing her off for a bit and they're killing Lily, she's going to come back with something different. Now, I mean, it could be completely different. She could just go back to being Little Miss Bliss. I don't think that works, especially, given that I think she's on the other side of 30 now. So I do think like
what's the other side of 30? I think she's on the side of 30 that you want to be on.
Our side of 30.
Is she really?
I think so. I mean, the last time I looked, she was 29. So she could be, yeah. She's getting close. I mean, she doesn't look.
She's exactly 30.
There you go.
That's the part. That's the side of 30 you want to be on, though. The other side of 30 would be like 38.
Well, no. I meant like, she was in her 20s. Now she's in her
30s. Yeah.
But either way, like, I think that, that Little Miss Bliss character doesn't work for somebody that's 30. Or neither does the schoolgirl look. But the Harley Quinn thing definitely could. And would. Now they got to be careful that they're not too obvious about it, because they could get sued. But because, I mean, I'm watching this and I'm like, how did they even get away with making a character that looks so much like her? Like, it's ridiculous.
All right, so let's end with this segment, which we are calling the TLDR. And here's the idea for this: how we're going to end these shows, at least for now. We'll fill it out. Paul wanted us to wrap up each show with two things. One, guilty pleasure, maybe something that's cute that might not be for the best, but you still enjoy it. And something that you really dislike, avoid it at all costs. If you were telling your friends about, don't watch this, it would be like every time Paul Bearer comes on screen. Please just end this thing now. So we'll start with Keela. Give us both of your A, guilty pleasure, and B, the thing that you really dislike and hope that WWE just stops doing.
Well, I have to cheat a bit for my first one. It's a tie for guilty pleasure. Anything index related from NXT is just the best. Indy Hartwell, Dexter Lumis, Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae. That is great comedy. And I know Jeremy Borash is in charge of directing and putting these things together. But Dexter Lumis is the best character actor in WWE today. This dude knows the assignment at all times and never misses. The rolling condoms, I cried. It was fantastic. It was the best. That was the highlight of NXT from Tuesday.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. As safely as possible. Like Trojan had an opportunity here to really get some ad buys for that particular sell. But safe sex, guys. Wink, wink. You got to do it. So also, as my guilty pleasures, actually Seth Rollins breaking into Edge's Sheephouse on SmackDown. This dude had a very elaborate fur coat on, takes it off to reveal a gaudy gold jacket, and he kicks his feet up and he chills out. But as you mentioned, Paul, Edge's performance was great because he realized, I can't get there fast enough. Let me get on the phone. But two things. First, he says, I'm going to have David and Daniel get there. And those are the legit shoot names of FTR. And you had them both tweeting, we are on our way in the black pickup truck. It was great. It was a great insider reference. And then Pat McAfee says, damn, that called the police. Like, they're not going to get there fast enough. Like, that was just fun stuff.
I didn't even get that.
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
I didn't either.
I thought they were like Beth's brothers or something.
No, I went online and I saw, oh, wow. Okay, Daniel, I know that's Cash. And David, that's Dax. And they're tweeting that they're coming in from the black pickup truck. It was fantastic. Great insider reference. That is the real Forbidden Door opening to open the Forbidden Door at Edge's house. Great stuff. And as for the thing to avoid this week, sorry, NXT 2.0, but anything Joe Gacy related, just turn the channel immediately. All I see, as I said earlier, is Kevin Owens light, and I just can't take it. And this woke character isn't it whatsoever, and I don't get it. And by all means, people, flip the channel and watch something else every time he's on the screen. Now, when he's wrestling, there's potential there, but as a character, he sucks.
All right, Paul. This was your idea. I'm sure you have two that you really thought about. So go for it.
So Tequila took one of mine, so I had a backup because that condom thing was the best. So actually, I'm gonna go with the same people in both of mine. So my guilty pleasure was the pre-show match on Extreme Rules between Carmella and Liv Morgan. I thought, like, I just watched it out of habit. And it was great. Like, great is maybe an overstatement, but it was much, much better than I thought it was going to be. And a really fun match with a hot crowd in Liv's hometown, the right finish, just everything. So then they had this match that was well received by anybody that saw it. And they go and they do a rematch on SmackDown. If you like the first match, don't watch the second one. And if you saw the second one and you want to see something good, go back to Extreme Rules on Peacock and watch the first one, because that one was really good.
All right. Here's mine. The first one is about someone we just talked about in Alexa Bliss. I find her to be so good at doing something that is not great for her creatively. She is a soldier. She is game. She's doing her job. And I would say my guilty pleasure was actually her match against Charlotte, because I did not want to see this match one single bit. Like I said, Charlotte is bullying everybody. And now you have this character who, the character in of itself kind of just by nature makes the matches poor. And I watched them both work through that stuff and have not a good match, but a match that I did not hate, and I did not I didn't feel like I wasted my time, and it was just solid for what it was. And the reason why it's a guilty pleasure is because I give so much kudos to Alexa for doing this stuff and doing it in a way that I find to be, if she's thinking of it as like sort of acting or whatever, like maybe she's playing a terrible character on a show, like sometimes, in roles, in movie roles, you play a bad person, or you play a person there's like, there's not much logic to this, but I am getting a big paycheck. And some actors, they just, maybe Will Smith and Wild Wild West, they just kind of just like go, this kind of sucks. I'm not going to do my best here. Alexa is doing her best, I think, given terrible stuff. Okay, so the thing that I say, let's get away from this. Never want to see it ever again. B-Fab versus Elektra Lopez. Let's lock that match in a vault. I know they want to do it again because they're going to say this is part of the evolution. We're going to set it up. They're going to be better. No. Let's stop that from ever happening ever again in the history of NXT. Thankfully, they're going to be on SmackDown. I don't want to see all of a sudden they're on SmackDown and then Elektra Lopez comes out on SmackDown and wants a rematch with B-Fab. We have the opportunity to completely just forget that this match even existed because I hate to be the wrestling commentator that starts critiquing work because I've never wrestled in my life, right? There are so many variables that could exist as to why a match was bad. But I mean, I can watch, Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson and Nick Jackson and go, okay, that was a really well worked match. I really enjoyed it. But so I'm not someone who's going to just like say, oh, they should never be in the wrestling ring. They don't know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm not trained, so I can't be that person. All I can say about that is the person who put that match together, who decided this is what we were going to do, I feel really bad for those women because they were not ready to have that match, that type of match. It shouldn't have been on TV. It should have been a cinematic match. Let's tape it and let's edit it down instead of doing this on live television. I've made this point a million times. John Cena in 2004 was on SmackDown. Maybe it's 2005. I don't remember the exact time frame. But the reason he was on SmackDown is because they were worried that he couldn't get over and his matches would be bad on a live TV show. He was on SmackDown so they could edit his matches. And he's John Cena. And yet they don't take that care with these poor women who are not ready. I was so frustrated. I was so angry that B-Fab was put into this situation because she's such a great character with so much promise. And now when she comes out and she talks her smack and she's, she raps and she's got her lines, the thing that's going to be in the back of people's heads are, well, we already saw you fight and you suck. So why should we care when you're dropping these lines about, the next time? And that's what's unfortunate. So let's get away from that. Let's try to erase it from that it even happened. And let's just not do that again because we're going to ruin these characters who are great. Legado del Fantasma a month ago, 2 months ago, hot as hell. And after last week, they feel like the coldest that they've ever been. So let's just stop doing that, WWE. Thank you. All right. This is the first episode of The Wrap. Like I said, we're going to have some revolving hosts. I don't even know if we know who's going to host next week or what that's going to be like. But there will be some sort of cast of characters. My hope is that, Keela is on this show more so than not. Paul is doing so much stuff. He's going to be a welcome guest anytime he's available. And I will try to be here at least twice a month, depending on what my schedule is with the Wrestling Observer Radio, because that's why I don't really do too much on Saturdays, because sometimes I'm burnt out from having to put up a show with Dave Meltzer at 3 o'clock in the morning. All right, so that is it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully we gave you what you were looking for. I hope that people can listen to this and, maybe people who've stopped watching WWE and they kind of just want, what's the main points? What's the hits here? I hope we gave that to you. And because of the name of the show, I have a specific way we can end this show. So I'll say it here. For Keela and Paul, I'm Double G. It's a wrap.